Good afternoon. I'm Paul Rogers, and I'm going to speak to you for a few minutes about sports law, careers in sports law, and then courses you might take if you're interested in a career in sports law. Sports lawyers can be broadly divided into two categories. Those that work with respect to the professional sports arena, and those that work for collegiate athletics. Of course, there are other offshoots of that, but those are the two main categories. In professional sports, most professional sports teams do have in-house lawyers. They usually have a small in-house staff of 1, 2, or 3 lawyers, and then they also use outside counsel quite a bit. Of course, most of the outside lawyers are large law firms, but there are some specialty law firms that represent professional sports teams. With respect to collegiate athletics, there are a number of ways to get involved. Mostly, or one way I should say, is through compliance. Every Division I university has a compliance office, and the compliance office helps to assure that the institution is complying with NCAA rules and regulations. The larger D1 schools may have compliance staffs of 10 to 12. SMU has 5, for example. You don't have to be a lawyer to have a compliance job, but many compliance officers are in fact lawyers. I'm trying to think. I think at SMU, 3 of the 5 have law degrees. Conference offices also have compliance people within their offices and who are often lawyers. In Dallas, we have conference headquarters for the Big 12, Conference USA, and before too long, the American Athletic Conference. So don't overlook conferences as well. The NCAA employs young lawyers. Many young lawyers are investigators for the NCAA. When there's a major infractions case, the NCAA investigates those cases, and those investigators are often recent law school graduates. So that's one avenue into collegiate athletics as well. I should mention, before I forget, that the compliance office at SMU has an externship, which I supervise, and they usually have 1 or 2 per semester, sometimes 1 in the summer. And so it's a great way to get some experience in the compliance field. Now, when we talk about sports lawyers, they tend to be more jack of all trades, maybe master of none or few. Sports lawyers do all professional sports lawyers do all kinds of things, for pro sports franchises, and so that's why, in terms of classes that you might take, pro sports cuts across many substantive areas of the law. Examples would be, well, let me start with this. So. We do offer only 1 sports law class, and it's typically taught in the spring by an adjunct. And so I believe it's going to be taught next spring, and that would give you a grounding in sports law. It's a survey course. In addition to that, we have, you would want to take business enterprises for a number of reasons, but one of which is sports lawyers need to know something about corporate governance and corporate structures. Other classes that that touch upon or involved in with your sports law, real estate law, construction law. If you're with a pro sports franchise, you may be involved in real estate and construction issues. Of course, employment law, employment discrimination, and labor law. Employment law is huge in the sports law field, particularly on the pro sports side. IP related classes are particularly trademarks. There's a franchising. I think we have a franchising law class offered in the fall that can be quite relevant as well. Even environmental law. Now, in addition to that, antitrust law is a good class to take. Lots of litigation involving the antitrust laws and the NCAA and pro sports leagues. So that's an area that there's a lot of crossover. I teach an antitrust legal edited writing seminar in the spring. Many of the students who have had an antitrust law take the antitrust seminar, and then they write a paper on a sports law topic. So I'm sort of saving the best to last. We have a corporate counsel externship program, mostly for third-year students. BE is a prerequisite for that corporate counsel externship. Assistant Dean Yeager, I think, is in charge of it. We have externships through that program with the Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, and usually the Texas Rangers, although I think we did not have one this past year. Also with Mark Cuban companies, where you might, if you're lucky, get to do some work with the Mavericks, although I think that's not necessarily promised. So there are a lot of possibilities to get one's foot in the door and get some experience through that corporate counsel externship. So there are a number of ways to get involved. Sports law jobs typically are tough to come by. If you're geographically flexible, the compliance side of collegiate athletics is typically a good entree, although the salaries there are not great. So I'm always happy to take email questions, and in normal times, I'd be happy to meet with students interested in sports law. I don't have time now, but we do have a number of our alums who've had or are having successful sports law careers, and they've they all started. You have to start somewhere. So so if you have any connections yourself, by all means use them. But in terms of selecting courses, a broad range of courses that touch upon sports law would be your best bet. All the best.